first I'd like to thank our friends at the 10 Group for producing this fantastic film for us. And now you get to compare and contrast the live version to the on-screen version of some of the people you've just seen. So we have a fantastic group of people here today to talk a little bit about the UK-Israel Tech Partnership. What's been achieved until now, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what lies ahead in terms of the potential. So I'd really like to start with just some opening comments from each of you. Where does UK-Israel collaboration meet you? Why has this become part of your priorities as a business, as a government, from where you're coming at it? And what do you think we should be speaking out in that context? Maybe we'll start from that end, from Tal, and work our way back.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. For us, the UK is a luxurious market, and it's also the entry point for our operation in Europe. We see the UK as the business partner for us. We see the UK as the one with the most developed transportation market. And we see ourselves now as a part of the fabric of transportation in London, in other cities in the UK. We see ourselves as part of the fabric of the high-tech industry in London and the economy of London, and we have ambition to grow here in London. We already have 200 employees here. We've done the first acquisition of a company in London, in the UK, and for us it's just the beginning of a very good relationship and partnership.
Ashok.
Well, I guess I tend to look at the world from the somewhat twisted perspective of a practicing attorney. And so that means I look at deals. Where are there deals? And the exciting deals between Israel and the UK have, interestingly enough, gone both ways, and I think they're going to continue to go both ways, both if we think of ourselves as in Israel, inbound and outbound. There have been exciting acquisitions by UK companies such as BTG and ARM of interesting Israeli companies, but there have also been some very interesting acquisitions by the more mature Israeli tech companies of UK companies. And I think that we might see more of that in the coming period. If we're trying to look forwards a little bit, we may see more opportunities for Israeli technologists to become deal makers in the UK.
Thank you. Well, I suppose we look at the world from the twisted perspective of a practicing UK retailer, and for us, we became aware some time ago that there was a concentration of tech activity in Tel Aviv in particular, and what we're doing with the opportunity is to identify niche requirements that we have as a business where all of our growth is on mobile tech, and identifying partners out in Tel Aviv who can help us optimize our use of that tech or optimize it for the customer so they can deliver the best performance from our perspective. So it's quite a niche requirement, but the concentration of talent and the ability to work with the hub to see the talent in an organized manner has been massively helpful to allowing us to address our requirements.
Well, I have actually two perspectives. The first one was when this initiative started by a letter from Prime Minister David Cameron to Prime Minister Netanyahu. I happened to be the permanent secretary then of the Ministry of Finance, and since I was a tech guy, this letter landed on my desk with the question, Chaim, what do we do with that? And my answer was simple. If someone wants to be a friend in Israel, first of all, we say yes, and then we see what we do. So actually, this initiative is a unique opportunity for a commercial diplomacy, and we'll talk about it later on. The personal perspective is, as a CEO of NICE, my most important decision was to merge with my UK competitor, and together we have built a great partnership and a great company, working with Israeli and UK-based engineers, created great products and helped us conquer world markets.
Thank you. So thank you all for that. I think it gives us a good sense of the context that we're operating in. And I'd like to try now to make it a little more concrete for people in the audience, and to ask people to share a specific example of a collaboration that they felt was particularly successful, or an anecdote from that collaboration. And maybe, Sean, we'll start with you. You have a tough job of being the tech driver in a very non-tech business. What sticks in mind from the journey that you've been on with regard to Israel that has helped you fulfill that really challenging role?
It's probably not enormously sexy, but what has been particularly useful for us is the ability to get organized in a timely fashion and see a lot of startups and benchmark them together and work out what we want to do about our business problem in the context of that benchmarking. So we identified a business problem we wanted to fix. We came to you with that business problem. You helped us long list a group of startups. We shortlisted the startups. We interviewed them in Tel Aviv, and now we're working on a proof of concept with 5 of them. So I think it was organizational.
Tell us about one of those 5, maybe.
All of them are in the area of optimizing conversion rate on the product page of a website. So we want more people to put our shoes in a basket and hopefully transact. All of them are about interaction on that page with the customer, whether it's a messaging app to ask your friends their opinion on what you're looking at, whether it's using aggregated social commentary from around the web in terms of reviews to help people convert and put that item in the basket. It's all very much about improving the interaction behavior on the page so we can get an add to basket.
Thank you. Tal, London taxis and black cabs are almost mythical creatures, and yet you decided to come into this market here and grow your business. Why, and was there any turning point along the way, or a story that you'd like to share on what it's been like doing business in the UK?
So the black cabs for us is an example of the best of breed of taxi in the world. And when we started operation here, we had in mind that this is the biggest market for taxis in Europe, and still one that is based on a legacy, and we can tap in with the fine technology that we have and our products and have the best of breed of both. And we found the market very receptive to our messages. We found that the industry itself was receptive. We found that even in the black cabs, that is considered to be very traditional market, and the drivers are very traditional in mind, still we're very much receptive to technology, to our messages, to our ability also to enhance service level as a whole. Now beyond that, obviously, with every touch point that I personally had, or us as a company, with the UK official, we have constant discussion with the UK government, with several branches of the UK government, with the London Stock Exchange and others. We found that the environment is very much friendly. The culture is almost similar. And when it comes to business, it was all about business. And we found it very attractive for us and very straightforward. Whenever I needed something in the UK, I found it very easy to access the right people and to get the right solution in a very orderly way. So it was perfect for us in this regard.
Ashok, has that been your experience too in terms of kind of doing business? Is the business culture similar to what you've found in doing deals with other countries? Is it different? How so?
Well, there's a pretty good fit between the Israeli way of doing deals and the UK, British way of doing deals. An interesting example that I'd like to give from specific experience in the past few years is the increasing attention that the private equity investors, a large segment of whom are based here in London, are giving to making deals in Israel. It's a relatively new phenomenon. We didn't really have a lot of PE homegrown in Israel up until now, but we've seen many of the major players, a few of whom I think are actually with us today, funds like Francisco Partners and CVC and Carlyle, coming around and looking at interesting deals. A lot of them happen not to have been in tech, but from the conversations I've had with people in the industry, it looks as though those investors are also interested in mature tech companies, and we've seen a few tech deals.
Thank you. And Chaim, you, I hope, have more than a few examples that you've experienced. What are some of the ones that you think stand out in terms of interesting partnerships between the two countries?
Well, if we look at the partnerships that we at the Hub have helped create, there are many examples. I'll give a few. Very nice partnership between Dyson, a major UK company, with an Israeli startup by the name of Prismeter, between Shop Direct, a very large retailer, and an innovative Israeli company by the name of Simagen. But also, if we look at the big boys, between JSK, that didn't have any activity of innovation in Israel, we have helped create partnership between them and the Technion, and also the other direction, helping and working with Teva to create a $20 million program for clinical trials here in the UK. And if we look at RBS, for example, RBS would be a great example of how the hub works. We have identified the opportunity for disruption technology in the financial sector as a major interest for UK customers. And together with RBS, we have mapped the most promising 15 Israeli startups. We have brought them to London and worked with RBS, with their IT departments, on what are the needs, what are the opportunities. This was a great example of partnership. And as a result, if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 7 POCs are now actually being conducted at RBS, while before this activity they had zero activity with Israeli startups, and this all happened in a matter of a few months.
Thank you. So everyone in the conference, today is of course extremely positive about UK-Israel collaboration, but I want to ask everyone here your honest opinion. Is it really all win-win, or is there also a little bit of competition between the two countries in the tech scene? And where do you see that tension, if it exists? Sean, do you want to start?
My sense of it is that there's quite a lot of competition between the Israeli companies offering quite similar services to the UK market. That's certainly been my experience. It is win-win. But the definition of win will probably change depending on the size of your business. The definition of win for us is that the investment we make, however big it is, we're a relatively small business relative to RBS and people like RBS, but the quality of the added value has got to pay for the nature of the investment we make. So we're looking for a multiple of benefit that we can point to. So I think it is win-win. I think it's important to identify what your needs are and match the correct companies to your needs. Not every Israeli startup is relevant to what we need. But I get a sense that certainly competition is absolutely rife between the startups.
And thank you. And Chaim, you kind of sit between the two ecosystems, the Israeli and the UK, in terms of tech and business. Are they competing? Are they collaborating? Are they doing both? How do you see it?
The short answer, it's a win-win. The long answer, it's a bit more complicated, because if you look at the individual company, obviously there could be always companies that would compete on a micro level. But if you look at it on a macro level, Israel is a small country, small economy, yes, great tech scene, and the UK is obviously significantly bigger. So the opportunity to collaborate and build together competitive advantage is much bigger than what would make a specific company look like a competition on a specific field. I want to give you a specific example. When we worked back in the Ministry of Finance with Barclays, we actually created a program for Barclays to have an innovation center in Israel. I got many phone calls back then from Israeli CEOs. Hey, Chaim, what are you doing to us? They will take all of our great people. And yes, a few people have left those companies, those startups, to join Barclays. A few years later, there are hundreds of people employed in Barclays and Citibank, and more important, there are hundreds of startups in the fintech that are part of the ecosystem. So yes, maybe a few companies have lost a few employees, but the bottom line is that it created jobs and business significantly bigger to the economy. And if you look at or heard what Barclays executives said when they came to Israel for the inauguration of their incubator, they are taking this model and are looking how to make it a world leader and part of the global innovation program. So again, it's a win for everyone. That's what I believe. On top of it, there's a potential for collaboration on the government scene. We have seen programs that have matured in Israel, like Magshimim, taking young people, educating them and making them part maybe of the cyber or the tech in the military. And we have worked with the UK government to take this same program and implement it in the UK. On the other direction, we have worked with the Israeli government on taking part of the eGov and the advance that the UK government has made in technology for government and working with the Israeli government to implement some of this innovation. So I believe there's a really opportunity for win-win for both economies.
Thank you. Tal, Ashok, do you want to add anything on that? Are we competing, collaborating, both?
Yeah, sure. I think that, from my experience, we have some competitors, obviously, in the UK. My experience with that was that there was no premium in kind to any local competitor versus us, and there's no discount for us being perceived as Israelis in this regard. So I think that the market was very much open. When it's regard to the talent pool, which is also a crucial part of our business, acquiring the best people on board. So we found it very easy to tap into this market. There's no really competition on that because the pool is so, so big in many regards. There are specific talents that you can find very, very easy in Israel, and there's some that you can find in the UK easier. And us, we promote a culture in which you can have as many people as possible to absorb other cultures. You can benefit from the Israeli work ethic and the way we conduct business and so on, and so much from the other side as well. And I think that us as a company, we advance and we develop by absorbing the goods of each culture.
I would just add that competition is good, and it's an opportunity for strong companies to test themselves and observe what their competitors are doing and maybe identify a competitor as a potential acquisition target. And for instance, in the field of cyber, where in Israel we're getting some larger and larger companies that are not being yet acquisition targets, I think that some of those companies might very well, cyber is such a complicated field where the services and products need to be addressing so many different issues, you could have the opportunity for acquiring a competitor, which would be a good thing.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask our panelists to brace themselves because now we have something called the Kälkälist Challenge, which is a question given to us by the organizers. So if I could ask you each to give a brief answer. It's not that hard, don't worry. You can do it. So the organizers would like to know, what are your views on Brexit? Is this really bad news for the UK, for the UK-Israel relationship? Could there be good news in it as well? Just quickly from each of you, what are your perspectives?
As a voter, it doesn't change the business problems. It doesn't change the nature of the opportunity. It doesn't change the role of tech in any way. I think what it does potentially do is affect the planning cycle in businesses like ours, in that if the economy is not growing at the same rate, or there's a lot of uncertainty about how we govern interaction between countries, certainly in this continent, then that will affect the planning cycle. It makes people more conservative. It makes us less able to spend money on innovation. So the uncertainty is not good, but I think the nature of what's happened has no effect on the interaction that will continue to take place.
Yeah, thank you for not asking me about Donald Trump. Brexit, I actually agree. I think Brexit is good for the people in this room. It creates uncertainty and instability, which is, I guess, in some ways bad for all of us. But why is it good for the people in this room? Because I think it means that in the UK, the government and the significant players in the economy need to pay a lot of attention to the tech field. And so with things like Silicon Roundabout and the Tech Hub, I think we're going to see a lot of interesting opportunities, specifically in this field as a result of Brexit.
Yeah, from my point of view, I think that the Brexit is blown beyond the proportion it should be. And eventually, I have a lot of belief about the UK economy, the UK market. Before the EU, and obviously now, I believe that also at this point, the UK embraces its allies, such as Israel. So I believe it's now more important for the UK government to find friends like Israel at this time, and we are definitely good friends. So absolutely, we can benefit from that.
Thank you. And Chaim.
Humble Israeli, I don't know regarding the Brexit. We should be humble. It's not, we're not expert in everything, but in terms of collaboration, Israel, UK, and other countries, it actually creates more opportunities.
Thank you. So I'm getting signals that our time is up, and maybe just a final sentence from Chaim as chairman of the hub. 5 years from now, will we still need a UK-Israel tech hub? Will the market be taking care of everything on its own? What can we expect?
Our model is to look beyond the here and now, look at opportunities that the markets don't see, and this will always be the case. In 5 years, there will be new technologies, new social development, new government priorities, so there will always be the need for someone that thinks beyond just the day, tomorrow, or the day after.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists.